Welcome to This Week in the World of Wrestling.
Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our Lucha Underground review. And what a spectacular episode of Lucha Underground this was. A lot of fresh faces seen on tonight's episode at a spectacular triple threat main event, and just a continuation of all the things we loved about the last episode of Lucha Underground. Ashton, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, this was, I'll even go as far as to say this was better than the second episode. Not necessarily better than the first one, though.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I felt like this episode was a solid piece of wrestling television. Again, I really think it's to its benefit that it's only an hour, because you really feel energized after walking away from it. And there's just so much about this promotion that I love. But with that said, I mean, let's get into what we may not have liked with our first segment, Heat of the Night. And I have 0 heats of the night tonight.
Yeah, I don't have any either.
All right, then. Well, with that said, let's get right into our Lucha Underground review, and we open up with a recap of what Chavo Guerrero did last week, laying everybody out, and then, if I'm not mistaken, don't we open up with the actual owner of Lucha Underground, Ashton?
Well, technically, we kind of opened with a little bit of a recap from last week, talking about the whole thing that went down with Blue Demon Jr. and Mil Muertes, and then Chavo's assault, Sexy Star getting the chair to the head. But yeah, the first new content that we get is a backstage skit with Dario Cueto and Conan, where Conan talks about how he has brought Drago, Pentagon Jr., and Phoenix from Mexico. And Dario talks about how, he was having trouble at the border, and Conan was like, yeah, I had a little trouble at the border, but that's taken care of. And Dario says, all right, well, let's take these 3 guys and put them against each other. That'll be our main event tonight. So, yeah, it was just a quick little setup so that we kind of know what's going on and how these guys got here and where they came from. And so now we know that these 3 guys are all products of Conan's working.
Absolutely, and I love that there's a sense of continuity with Lucha Underground, that this is an open temple. Anybody can come in and try and test their merit as a wrestler, as a worker, and see how they perform. And we've got 3 new talents as the main event. I think that's a bold move. It's not relying on any of the more seasoned talents with these last few episodes. It's giving, again, fresh faces a chance, and I love it, man. It's great.
Yeah, it's, you know what? These guys are pretty big names in Mexico, but no one's really ever heard of them in the States. So yeah. It's great to see. And you know what? After what we saw from tonight, it's a shame that no one's ever heard of them from the States, because they're awesome.
Yeah, they are, but we'll get to that later, because I can't wait to talk about that match with you. So then, up next, I do think we have Dario Cueto, though, in the ring, don't we?
Yeah, he came out and he said that apparently people are complaining that there isn't enough lucha in Lucha Underground. And he says, well, I've got your lucha right here. And he introduces a new wrestler that he has brought in named Mariachi Loco, which is kind of ridiculous because that's about as generic of a luchador's name as you could possibly have. The only thing short of being the perfect generic luchador is if you tacked a junior to the end of it. But yeah, Mariachi Loco actually ends up being in our first match against a really well-known and legitimate mini wrestler by the name of Mascarita Sagrada. And this was a really, really good way for them to introduce the idea that they let mini wrestlers wrestle against normal-sized wrestlers. This was awesome.
What I loved about this match, Ashton, was that it took itself seriously.
Yeah. It wasn't like freaking Heath Slater versus El Torito.
Exactly. It's not like, oh, what? How did he beat me? He's so small. It took itself seriously. Mariachi Loco actually got offense on Mascarita, kicking him in the face, driving him down, all that stuff. It was a competitive contest. And another thing that I love too, and I was keeping a keen eye out for, because I know you say it about Rey Mysterio and a lot of those types of competitors a lot, how was he going to win? Was he going to win in a way that was ridiculous, like the setup was just like smacking you in the face? I actually liked how Masquerita got the win here. It seemed like he had like a guillotine of sorts type submission, and then he transitions into the cradle and he gets the pin on Mariachi. So I even felt like the way that they gave the smaller competitor the win was so much better than in a way that WWE would do it. So
yeah, it was really well done, and Masquerita looked really legit in this match, even against what I'm perceiving as kind of like a generic jobber heel kind of guy that just kind of, he's like the low man on Dario Cueto's totem pole.
Right.
But yeah, other than that, it's pretty good. I enjoyed this match. And the commentary wasn't even that bad either. Of course, Stryker had to mention one time, or maybe even 2 or 3 times, that, oh no, it's perfectly normal that the minis are wrestling the regular sized guys now, and it's not that big of a deal, and they can hang and all that stuff. And it would be nice if they would just kind of tone down their self-stroking of their own egos about this kind of stuff, because other people do it too. But other than that, I can't really complain about this match at all.
Certainly not. It was so well done. And I was afraid that they were going to make it like a comical fest, and I've already been turned off by those, thanks to WWE, again, with the Heath Slater, El Torino matches and the like. But it took itself seriously, and for that, I really have to give it a big endorsement, a big thumbs up. Yeah. So, with that said, in the post-match, Masquerita is celebrating when all of a sudden Chavo Guerrero emerges.
And he destroys Masquerita.
Yeah, he destroys Masquerita, and then I was a bit perplexed when Vampiro was kind of cheering this on. That's another thing, too, about commentary. I really don't know who the babyface is and who the heel is, or if they just kind of trade off.
I don't think there is a babyface or a heel. I think that they're just kind of there to call the action, and the one thing I will say that I think I really like about Vampiro that not enough people are noticing is that he makes you feel smart to the product. And I don't mean necessarily like, oh, this is how they work their punches and that kind of stuff. I mean, like, he makes you feel like he is in the know about who these people are, and he knows who the big deals are, and he knows who you should be taking seriously, and he lets you in on that. And I really love that about him, because most people that are watching this, it's aired in America, so most people that watch this are ignorant to most of the Mexican and other luchadors that are actually on the roster. So it's really awesome that Vampiro is kind of there whispering in your ear like, oh man, this guy's really legit. You got to take him seriously. It's just really helpful. I like it a lot.
Well, I completely agree with you, Ashton. I think it's very important for any new brand, especially to American audiences that deals primarily in Lucha Libre and Mexican talents, educate the people. And the way you do that is through commentary. So I think Vampiro provides a very vital service. And Stryker, I guess, in his own way does as well, because he's kind of like our voice, I suppose, if you would want to go that argument. But, yeah, so in that respect, I do think they make a good team. But, yeah, Chavo Guerrero lays Masquerita.
I will say I almost had a heat of the night, or at least a nitpick, because of the amount of WWE language that Stryker was using tonight.
Right.
Because, like, when we got our three-way, he said, well, they used to call this a three-way dance, but triple threat just sounds so much more dangerous, I think he said. And it's like, dude, triple threat is a WWE term. That's not just something that you can just kind of toss around and be like, oh, well, this has 3 people in it, therefore it's a triple threat. No, that's a WWE term. This is a 3-way. You're in Lucha Underground now, and they call it a 3-way. The 3-way dance was what the NWA and WCW called it. You have different names for that type of match. It involves 3 people, but just because it involves 3 people doesn't automatically mean that you can call it a triple threat. That's a WWE thing. And then later on in the night, he said that there was some kind of a modified something that just reminded me of Michael Cole all the way through. And it just a lot of little things that it's like, dude, you're not working for WWE anymore. Like, call the moves, and if you don't know them, just kind of defer to Vampiro, because he probably will.
Yeah, I can totally see where you're coming from. I think Stryker needs to make the transition from being that WWE kind of fanboy behind the announce desk to, ingratiating himself to Lucha Underground and the language. Use the proper verbiage and everything. And that's the one thing I never really liked about Stryker. I always felt like See, it's hard because you can tell, I think, that he enjoys what he does, and I can't fault a person for that. But I always felt like he lacked that air of professionalism, like he'd always make a jackass out of himself. If I'm being honest, with how excited he get and some of the terms he throw out there, like, look at me, I'm using this term. Like, yeah, that's great, but, take it seriously, would you? So I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah, but after our first match of the night, we got a backstage segment involving Chavo Guerrero and Conan. And Conan tells Chavo that he's always been like family to him, but that the Mexican people are talking, and that they've found out about what he did to Blue Demon Jr., and it won't be long before they find out what he did to Mascarita, and that his advice to Chavo is that he disappears. Poof! And he said something about like a ghost, and basically he's saying that Chavo pissed off the Mexican people, and they're coming for him. So...
I'd say that's another thing that I'm loving, too, about Lucha Underground. There's so many little things that they do. If I was to talk about them all, it would take one episode of our reviewing this product. Because normally, I think in a situation like this, you'd fully expect, at least if you were me anyway, Conan to extend an offer to Chavo and kind of like assimilate a stable. Prince Puma, now Chavo, now all this. But no, Conan instead gives Chavo a warning, almost like a death threat of sorts, saying, I wouldn't make yourself scarce if I were you, if you don't want anything bad to happen. And then just kind of go their separate ways, which shows that, even though Conan's kind of like that managerial figure, he's very choosy about who he lets in and who he's going to mold. I like that.
Yeah. I love that Conan, too, and this is something that I always appreciated back in the old WCW days, too. I love that he speaks in elementary level Spanish just for people that don't know a lot of Spanish but kind of get the gist of what he's saying. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just a weird thing that he does that I appreciate as an English speaker who knows just a little bit of Spanish.
Yeah, I could see what you're driving at with that. I think it's inclusive enough, it's not like he's leaving us out in the cold, because that is something I get when you're a heel and you're in certain territories and you want to cut promos in another language so that you can mock us and we may not even know it.
Yeah.
But with Conan, I like that he kind of lets us in anyway, even if he is going to insult us, because then at least we have a reason to rage. So, good stuff. And then, when Conan kind of leaves, Chavo comes face to face with Mil Muertes. And then after that, Katrina appears, and she says, you took something that did not belong to you, and I think said, Mil Muertes will take care of that, down the road, but, for now, a taste before 1,000 deaths. She licks Chavo's face like she did to Blue Demon Jr. Last week, and Chavo pretty much has the same reaction, gives a light touch to the cheek, like, what the heck just happened, and I think that pretty much concludes that segment.
Yeah, and then next, transitioning from a Mil Muertes vignette, or I guess mention backstage, into a Mil Muertes match. He has a match with Ricky Mandel, who I've never heard of before. I don't know if he's a big deal in the indies, but I would guess not. And he even comes off as a jobber here.
Yeah, I do like that, at least in Lucha Underground, the jobbers do get some offense and the matches get at least a respectable amount of time, considering their status. But yeah, Mil Muertes demolished him here. I want to just kind of backtrack a little bit, though, Ashton. Didn't we get a Mil Muertes vignette before this match? Or was that after the fact?
It was after. It was after.
It was after, because I'm excited to
Oh, no, you know what? You're right. You're right, actually. It was after they introduced the participants to the match, but before the match actually started, yes.
Why I wanted to bring that up, Ashton, I loved what they did here. I wish WWE would do more of this kind of stuff, because that rock that we saw Muertes hold and kind of cradle last week and give to Katrina with care, we learned about it this week. Apparently, Mil Muertes was a survivor as a child of this 8.1 earthquake in some city, which I wish I could remember the name of, but it killed his entire family, and he was the lone survivor. And it talks about how he took the darkness with him when he survived. I mean, holy crap, dude. First of all, the idea that he's getting character depth, period, is awesome, okay? Yeah. Second of all, the fact that it's this dark and this gritty to fit the character, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's like something out of comic book lore.
You mean it's like something out of a Grindhouse film?
Well, I'm actually not too familiar with the Grindhouse films, but I'll take your word for it on that as well. I
was only saying that because this is a Robert Rodriguez thing, and
yes.
Robert Rodriguez is the freaking executive producer of this show.
Yeah, that is very true. Great observation there. But I just think I love that they're building this mythos around him, and I'll tell you what, if they keep putting this kind of effort into guys like him, guys like Prince Puma and others, this may be one of the better, more character-driven promotions out there, because I love the depth that they're giving a lot of their performers lately. It's great. I hope it's a trend that continues.
Absolutely. It's awesome to see. And we got a little bit of backstory on more than just one person tonight. I shouldn't say backstory, but we got a little bit more exposition, I should say, on more than one person tonight. And we've gotten a lot of backstory already on Mr. Prince Puma himself, who we got another vignette for later on in the night, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. For now, though, like you said, we get the vignette for Mil Muertes, voiceover work by Katrina, talking about his family died in the earthquake, and then he grabs the rock, and I love some of the language that they used in this too, because Katrina talks about how he didn't feel fear in the rubble, he felt comfort, and that when he was amongst the coldness of death, he felt warmth. Like, just kind of portraying the fact that he is most comfortable when he is in the presence of death.
Absolutely. I just love what they're making this character out to be. And then it continues. Now we can bring it full circle into this match against Ricky Mandel, because he pretty much dominates this kid. But unlike last week against Blue Demon Jr., where he wins off the spear, he beats Ricky Mandel after a vicious right hand when Mandel tried coming off the top rope, and then he follows it up with the flatliner for the win. So he's 2-0, and this guy's dominating right now. You know what? If Lucha Underground does introduce a world title soon. I know in our 30-second hot seat on our Raw review that I said Prince Puma as a heel would make a great inaugural champion. But if they really want a bona fide heel right out of the gate and they don't want to go like all that craziness, I wouldn't mind Mil Muertes being the inaugural champion.
See, and again, I got to stick with my pick, man. I think they're going to really run with Big Rick, because they even had, and actually, you know what? Oh crap, it's not right up next, but they had a segment tonight involving him that I really enjoyed that I want to kind of talk about with you, because you had to take care of something for like 5 to 10 minutes, maybe not even that long, and you ended up missing not only the next segment involving Johnny Mundo, but the segment after that involving Big Rick. So do we have anything else left to say about Ricky Mandel versus Mil Muertes?
No, Muertes continues to impress, and let's see what we got, brother.
Okay, so up next was probably my favorite backstage segment of the night. Johnny Mundo is approaching Dario Cueto's office, and Cortez and Cisco are kind of acting like bouncers. They just kind of stand outside the office, and anytime somebody tries to get in, they prevent them from being able to do so. But apparently, Johnny Mundo is a total ass kicker in this promotion, because he walks up and he's like, "Hey guys, let me get in there and talk to Cueto," and they're really adamant that he can't, talking about how he's busy, and Johnny's just like, "No, I want to just talk to him," and then they're like, "Well, do you know the password?" And he's like, "Here's your password," and then he super kicks one of them in the face, and the other one goes in for a punch, and he ducks it, reaches his arm up, grabs around their chest, and hits a friggin' inverted STO into the wall. That takes both of them out, and then he charges into the office, and Dario looks like he's scared for his life because he heard the dude's face bang up against the wall, and Johnny just has this big smile on his face, and he's like, no, you don't get it. I want to work with you. Give me a match with Big Rick next week. And Dario's like, okay, you've got it. And then he's just like, you wanted violence? You're going to get violence next week. Oh, and by the way, after I'm done with Big Rick, you're next. So good!
What makes me elated and infuriated at the same time about the segment, infuriated, of course, because I missed it. Elated, though, because from your own mouth, which I think makes it even sweeter, Mundo, a.k.a. Morrison, of course, for those who knew him in his prior work, has gotten so much better speaking-wise. He has given countless interviews since he left.
Here's the thing. I think that it's got something to do with the idea that he's been taking acting classes, but let's be honest with ourselves. This wasn't exactly a live kind of pre-tape and live are oxymoronic, but this wasn't a live segment. This was a pre-tape. This was something that if it didn't come off right, he could have done another take. He could have gotten other chances. So I am waiting to see how he does when it comes to live segments, when he has to improvise a little bit, when he has to, play off the crowd, when he can't just do the acting thing, which is what he was doing here. He was acting. Whereas live, it's more improv. It's more kind of knowing how to give the crowd what they want or what they don't want, depending on what your alignment is, depending on how they react. And I'm looking forward to seeing how much he's improved in that category as well. But I think it's safe to say that he's definitely a better actor.
Yes, that's certainly true. So it's great to see those classes paid off. And he has taken improvisation classes, oddly enough, so hopefully he improves in that vein as well, because that's what I've been intrigued to see with Morrison, a.k.a., now Mundo, in that vein. So this segment sounded absolutely amazing. I'm kicking myself that I missed it. I'm so infuriated, so I will definitely have to catch it on the replay. And, yeah, it's great to see that he was just confronting Cueto and he was going to pee himself. But, yeah, he's got Big Rick next week. Not feeling too good about our prospects, especially with how the show closed, but we'll get to that later. And but I'm just so excited to see him as a regular in another promotion again, apparently because it's just so close to where he lives, so it works out great for everybody. I'm just so happy. So.
Yeah, and then we got a commercial break, but when we got back, we got a segment involving Big Rick. And this, I am so excited about this, because he said, and I quote, I don't fight for free. And Dario Cueto was just handing him hundreds, literally $100 bills, stacked a solid, 2 centimeters thick. And I'm guessing there were probably at least $5,000 in that stack. And Dario just handed it over to Big Rick. So Big Rick is a big money hired gun. And I see this guy being our first ever champion. I'm calling it right now.
And you know what? If you're right, I have no qualms about it. I love the big guy that knows his own worth. That's honestly why I have to be honest. I did enjoy Kevin Nash in TNA from time to time, because he'd always say, hey, I don't fight for free. If you can sign me a check for $10,000 right now, I'll fight in your main event tonight, because he knew his worth. He knew everything. Big Rick the same way. He knows he can get a job done because he's so massive, so imposing. But hey, he's not going to fight for free. He's here to get paid. I think we all are. So I really like that. I like that they're taking that approach with him, almost like he's a mercenary of sorts. Yeah. I really love it. I'm telling you, dude.
I hate to do this just because I know how you feel about it, but I kind of hope Big Rick absolutely destroys Johnny Mundo next week, just to really establish him as the monster heel in Lucha Underground.
Well, 2 points there. I mean, A, I'm anticipating it. I don't see this going well for Mundo at all. And B, honestly, just seeing Mundo back in a regular promotion where, again, he's like a regular roster member weekly.
Yeah, he's been on every show so far, dude.
He's been on every show. After going quite a few years without him on the WWE product, he could lose every match. I'm just happy to see him. So you know what? Being absolutely objective, I do hope Big Rick gets the win here. I think he needs to, because what would be the point of Cueto paying him then, or even bringing him in the first place, if he can't get the job done?
Exactly.
And who better to get the job done against than a guy who's just been so red hot in Mundo? That's why I'm glad that they booked him strong the first 2 weeks, because now when Big Rick does something, it's like, hey, now aren't you glad you hired me? Now give me your world championship next. So it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so up next was our main event and whole... Oh, wait. Before we get to our main event, we did have a Prince Puma vignette. It was pretty much just talking about all the same stuff we've seen so far anyway. So unless you have anything else to add...
No.
Okay, we can get to our main event. Drago versus Pentagon Jr. versus Phoenix. And holy crap, this was awesome. I'll say this main event was on the same level as our week 1 main event between Prince Puma and Johnny Mundo.
Completely agree. And you know what? The funny thing is, all throughout this match, because I was trying to think, because I was so excited to talk about this with you, and I'm like, well, who am I going to say was my personal standout, my personal favorite? And for a lot of the match, I was going to say Drago, what was my personal favorite. But those final few minutes, man, Phoenix absolutely killed it. All these guys, from bell to bell, did absolutely crazy things. And you know what? If anybody, now I'll say this, because we like to advertise NXT to certain people, and our first Lucha Underground review did insanely well, which again, I'm so grateful to everybody for. If you're an old school TNA fan and you love their X division, if Lucha Underground is going to deliver more on stuff like this, then you need to watch this product immediately. You need to watch this product like yesterday, because it was absolutely incredible what these guys did in that ring.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome, I have to say.
Dude, it was just insane. I mean, we got packaged pile drivers. We got corkscrew rotations off the ropes. It's just everything. There was one spot where it was like, I thought maybe a Tower of Doom was going to occur. Drago was in the Tree of Woe. Phoenix was balancing himself on the ropes on one end, and Pentagon Jr. On the other side. And Phoenix gets a Hurricane Run on Pentagon Jr. It was just so many crazy spots in this match, dude. What was your favorite spot in this match?
Man, I think my favorite spot in this match, at one point, I think it was Pentagon Jr. and Phoenix were in the ring, and Phoenix went up against the ropes and went over to Pentagon Jr., and Pentagon Jr. shot Phoenix up in the air like he was going to do a friggin' Swiss death, but Phoenix caught himself kind of and adjusted midair and came down and hit a Hurricane Rana on Pentagon Jr.
Dude, so sick. Like, I pop big for that. I pretty much pop big for every, huge spot in this match. Again,
honestly, I think the spot that I popped the most for, though, was the sort of Rikishi driver style pile driver that Phoenix used to put Drago out before finishing off Pentagon Jr.
Yeah, and hell, Pentagon Jr. prior to that maneuver, he is a sick package pile driver that I'm marking.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he does.
Oh my god. These three guys, it really is like one of those matches where it's tough to be critical or more analytical about, because I don't think the pace really calls for it. And plus, three guys all of a very similar pacing. So really, all you could just say is how crazy it was. Maybe mention a few spots and then just encourage everybody to go back and watch it, because it's just insanity. It's like watching a car pile up with your own eyes. It's incredible. And then the crowd twice chanted, "This is awesome." The match got a standing O. Phoenix got the win after an inverted Hurricane Rana. Just crazy, man. I will
say, though, out of these three, I still think that Drago was my favorite, because that dude is just flat out weird. Did you see during their entrances his freaking, I don't even know what it is. Obviously they played it up like it was his tongue, but whatever it was, I had no clue, and I was trying to figure out what in the world it actually was.
Oh, wow, yeah, you're just showing it to me now, dude. I don't even know what that is. Can you imagine if, he was a heel and he's, concealing a weapon, and that was really a weapon of some kind or something? That'd be pretty insane, but I have no idea what the heck that is.
And honestly, wow. He kind of reminds me, the way that he moves and his speed and the amount of air that he gets when he does high-flying stuff, of the original Sin Cara. And without the botches, obviously.
Right.
He moves that way. He has that kind of speed and that kind of, he gets that kind of air when he goes for high-flying moves. And I guess that at this point I might as well just go back to calling him Mystico, because that's what he's most famous for at this point. But he reminds me of Mystico, man. It's crazy.
These guys absolutely killed it, bro. I'm telling you, I can't wait for this promotion to get a world title, some tag titles, and whatever they want their mid-card title to be.
No mid-card title. No mid-card title.
So only tag team and world, you would say, maybe even a women's title,
I think
maybe?
they should even hold off on tag titles, to be honest.
Wow. All right, well, yeah.
I say they do another 2 or 3 months, maybe 4 or 5, and introduce a world title and just kind of take it from there. I think they should wait at least another year or two before they introduce tag titles, though, if at all.
Well, you know what? If they do just introduce a world title and that's it, I would still go with my idea that I expressed in the 30-second hot seat during our Raw TWitWoW. Have a big tourney over it. I'm talking a 16-man tourney over it, and just really, almost like King of the Ring style in the old days, in 2002 and whatnot, make a big production out of it.
Yeah, that would be cool. I feel like too many tournaments these days are only 8 people or 4 people. It's barely even tournament at that point.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, I used to love and I don't want to go too far off track, but I'll bring it back full circle. I used to love, like, the old school King of the Ring when it was just so massive that it would take weeks for us to get to the pay-per-view, and you'd see matches on both Raw and SmackDown dealing with it.
And Sunday Night Heat, too.
And Sunday Night Heat. So here, like, and because it's in, like, an open temple kind of thing, like, anybody can come into my temple to fight, make it a huge.
We could even get some, like, random, like, guest appearances, like, because of the situation with the WWE with the contract and how they got out of them, we could totally get Alberto Del Rio and Rey Mysterio, who obviously they would probably be Dos Caras Jr. and Rey Mysterio Jr. But we could get them as like special guests in the tournament too.
Absolutely, and you know what? I would have these three guys in it, hands down. And yeah, I would just make one massive production of it, and then just make the finals the biggest possible deal. Again, you see Big Rick being the first champion. I see either at this point Prince Puma or Mil Muertes, because you know what? After giving him that kind of backstory and him being that dominant, I can't believe that I didn't say his name sooner. I actually feel like kind of a idiot for not even thinking of him more than I should have.
Yeah,
but
I mean, as far as tournaments go, if your first round of your tournament is the quarterfinals, it's not a real tournament.
Yeah, there you go. I completely agree, though, dude. That's the thing. So, bringing it back here, I only say that because I feel like it's in the very near future. It won't be that much longer, I think, before we get the unveiling of some kind of thing. And I want those three guys, Pentagon Jr., the Phoenix, and Drago, on board.
Absolutely. Completely agree. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, hey, we already talked about who won this match, so unless you have anything else to say, we can get on to our next segment, my friend.
No, let's move on, man.
High spots and low shots.
All right, my low shot. Did you say something, Ashton?
No, go ahead. Who's your low shot?
All right. Yeah, my apologies. My low shot, you know what? I'm going to say that my low shot is Chavo Guerrero, because I know we didn't talk about this earlier, but his night started out strong because he actually had a sit-down interview with Vampiro, talking about why he did the things he did to Blue Demon Jr. and, the whole family legacy, and he's tired of always being the guy like, oh, we can bring Chavo in because he'll bring some eyes, but we're really going to build the product around Blue Demon Jr. And Chavo says he's sick of it. Chavo says anybody who's ever brought him in just to put over the other guy or do that can kiss his ass, and he's going to step out of the Guerrero shadow and finally lead the Guerrero family rather than just being lockstep. So I like that, but it came at a cost, and why he's my low shot is, I mean, even Conan, who Vampiro has said, like, he's really slimy and seedy and all that stuff, who I thought may have tried to align with Chavo, no, instead, he gives him a warning. He says, hey, you make yourself scarce. You make yourself extinct like a comprehensive immigration bill, because they're coming for you, Chavo. So, yeah, got a target on your back, and that's why you're my low shot.
Yeah. Let's see, who would my low shot be? Honestly, I would say my low shot, just for tonight, obviously that's probably going to bounce back next week, but just for tonight, my low shot is Dario Cueto, because his guy, Mariachi Loco, lost to Mascarita Sagrada, and his bodyguards, Cisco and Cortez, got beat up by Johnny Mundo, and he had to dish out like a solid $5,000 just to get Big Rick to compete next week.
Yeah, great reasoning, dude. Love it. I'd love to make Johnny Mundo my high spot, but in all honesty, I can't because I missed the segment. So instead, I'm going to make my high spot Mil Muertes.
Good call. I was going to do the same thing.
Excellent character depth tonight. Love the backstory. I'm telling you, he may be spearheading the whole movement of Lucha Underground being one of the more character-driven kind of promotions, and I love it. I love a good backstory. And he dominates Ricky Mandel. Yes, was it pretty much a squash match? Yeah, but he's going to be in big bouts soon. Again, we've been talking for quite some time now in this episode and our last review about the introduction of a world title. I think Mil Muertes is going to be at the top of that list for people to consider. So, yeah, he's definitely my high spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have had Mil Muertes as my high spot if you didn't pick him, but just because you picked him, I'm going to change it up a little bit, and I'm going to just say Phoenix is my high spot because he stood out the most in the main event, and he won it with a couple of really impressive-looking maneuvers.
Definitely, and all three competitors really, but he was the one, I guess, to really revel in the standing O that the match received as the victor. So, great first impression, definitely, and I don't think there's any greater high spot than that, than a guy that can come in as a fresh face, having to carry the main event on their shoulders, do some incredible stuff, and win. So I think that's still an exceptional choice. So with that said, because we have no additional segments for Lucha Underground reviews, I think that is going to be it, unless you have any concluding remarks about this week's episode.
Close it out, brother.
All right, this has been Lucha Underground. This has been TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my cohort and commentary, Ashton. Guys, be sure to comment and subscribe on YouTube. Discuss on Tweetov. What did you think of this week's episode of Lucha Underground? What did you think of that main event? Who was the standout star to you this week? And we will see you again for our NXT review, where we will have that burning question answered that we have all had since he first stepped in the ring. Can Sami Zayn win the big one? We'll find out tomorrow night. See you then, guys.